Awesome. So, yeah, hello everyone. First of all, thank you for joining us for the today's webinar. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to join this webinar on mobile first approaches and testing using LambdaTest and Applitools eyes. And we really hope that this would be a value add to your overall testing processes, and we can help you improve your overall testing cycles as well. Right. So joining me. So today, before we start, let me set up few ground rules. We are also hosting this webinar over YouTube. So if you, and once this webinar is concluded, it will also be recording of the session would also be hosted over YouTube as well. So during the course of a demo, if you have to leave or go somewhere, feel free to do that. We will have this recording ready. And once this recording is done, we will be sharing that recording over your email ID as well, right? So, but I really hope that you guys get to stay for the whole session. We also have a Q&A option in the Zoom meeting that you are joining. So at the end of the session, we will be taking a Q&A and hoping to answer few of your questions, depending upon how many questions there are. However, feel free to fill that up, ask any question during the demo. And if we see it to add a value during the course of the session, we will answer that then and there, or else we will take those questions after the session directly, right? So with that said, let's kickstart the session today. So first of all, my introduction, I am Mudit. I am Director, Product and Growth here at LambdaTest, and I will be your host today. Joining me is Anand. So Anand Bagmar is Quality Evangelist and Solution Architect at Applitools. So he comes with nearly 20 years of overall experience in solution engineering, testing, and has worked with companies like Microsoft, ThoughtWorks, and now for past 2.5 years, he is working with Applitools. However, I will allow him to give a better introduction of himself. So today, our agenda would be around the mobile first approach, why mobile first strategy is an important aspect, and how you can evolve your testing to coincide with the mobile first approach as well. We are also going to look into how you can leverage Applitools eyes for this. And in the end, we're also going to look into how Applitools and LambdaTest can be integrated to get a better overall solution. And at the end of the session, we will be also hosting a Q&A session. So feel free to ask any questions that you have, and we'll be happy to answer them, right? So Anand, I think now it's all over to you. Let me first stop my sharing my screen. We can start from there.
Great, thanks, Mudit. Okay, I'm hoping my screen is visible to everyone. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and especially if you're coming up late in the night, a very early good morning to you. Thank you for staying up so late or getting up so early. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks, Mudit, for this opportunity. Thanks to LambdaTest for this opportunity to share my thoughts on what is a mobile-first approach and how does testing need to evolve to fit in this way of working. So with that, let's get started. Now, Mudit has already spoken enough about me in the introduction. I don't want to bore you in those details, but feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and we'll be very happy to connect with you and discuss further based on what thoughts you have, what you might have heard, or other things related to quality and testing. So let's get started with the session. A quick look at reality. And reality is, in some ways, numbers can open up a lot of different perspectives. So I want to start by sharing some numbers which I came across when I was doing my research recently. So the first thing is, this is based on a report from Jan 2021, so fairly recent report. Based on the overall population of the Earth, 7.83 billion, there are about 5.2 billion unique mobile phone users, of which 4.466 billion users use internet. Social media does not matter in today's in the context of this conversation, but maybe in some context. But keep these numbers in mind as we proceed, because these numbers are fairly substantial. Of the number of users who are on the phone, who have mobile connections, the unique users are 5.2 billion. And that's a huge percentage of the overall population. The total number of mobile connections is 8 billion, which gives on an average 1.54 unique connections per user. That's a huge number, what we are looking at. If we take it down further into looking at the internet usage, last year might have been an anomaly in various ways, no thanks to the pandemic. However, we've got 7.3% increase in the number of internet users over the phones, and the average time spent per person on internet is 6 hours 54 minutes, almost 7 hours. 92.6% of the users who are connected to the internet are doing so from mobile handsets, mobile devices. And that is a number that we need to keep in mind. The growth of smartphone usage has been increasing tremendously year over year as well. Hence, would it be incorrect to say that we need to start thinking about a mobile first strategy when it comes to building products, when it comes to doing our testing as well for the products that we're releasing? What does mobile first really mean? It is thinking about your product, thinking about your features more first in terms of how you can make it available on the mobile devices to your end users, instead of the traditional approach where you're releasing websites or desktop-based applications, which in today's date has got significantly lower percentage of users compared to the others. There is a disclaimer I want to add over here. How do you really start about this? You have to think about the domain. Where or what is your product really about? In which domain is it fitting? Who are your target users? In which region or geography they are based in? And what platform they are on? And these aspects are going to be very important when it comes to thinking about, does it really make sense for me to go mobile first or go with the traditional approach? The context of each product can make this decision look in a very different direction. Okay, so please bear that in mind. Now, taking this further from a mobile perspective, what is the spread or split of operating systems for these users, for these set of users when they're accessing the internet? Majority is on the Android ecosystem. There is a substantial presence of iOS, and also there is still Windows Phone, BlackBerry are still reasonable in number, though this data is a little old compared to the earlier data. Okay. Now, if you break it down even further, trying to understand what Android ecosystem really looks like, what is this, assuming these numbers are the current numbers, 86% of Android users, which operating systems are they coming from? There's still a huge spread of active users on various different operating systems, starting from Android 10, 9, and of course, we've got Android 11 also out now. So definitely these numbers need updates. But this is still a huge spread of active operating systems that are in play for the users today. Similarly, for the iOS side, not surprising, there is still a healthy spread of different operating system versions for this. There is another very interesting aspect that you need to keep in mind. I mentioned geography earlier, or the region earlier. There is a preference of the types of devices or the operating system for mobile devices in different geographies or region. Japan is higher on iOS compared to Android, versus India, for example, is very high on Android compared to iOS. Why does this matter? It matters because, again, depending on your target audience for the product that you're building, you need to cater to which operating system or which platform you should be targeting or focusing more in order to give more value to your users, hence get more value for your product as well. So this is, again, a very important aspect to keep in mind. Another spread over here, another chart, is in terms of understanding which devices are more used compared to others. because again, for certain geographies, when you start looking at this data, you need to think about what type of devices are your users using. Is it going to be custom OS, stock OS, or whatnot? And based on that, you might need to think about what should your product development and testing strategy needs to be when you're doing this. Okay, so with that in mind, I hope it gives you a perspective about why mobile first is essential. That is the first thing. I think that's a no-brainer. But how do you focus on which geography, which region, which type of devices, which operating systems? I cannot answer that, but you as a team member in your organization will be able to look at this data or similar data and say, what approach should you take for this going forward? There is another aspect to keep in mind. Should I go native apps or should I go mobile web? Mobile web helps me scale easier and faster across different types of devices and also eventually take it to the web or simultaneously take it to the desktop users as well. But there is a criteria that you need to think about. It's not just about the ease of use. You also need to think about what is the user experience you're providing to your users for the feature set that you're offering, and how will they be able to get more value from what your product offering is. So again, there is no standard answer, should it be native or mobile web. You need to look at a lot of different parameters in context of taking these decisions. But that said, we now understand that mobile definitely is the place to start in most cases. Native or mobile web can add different set of complexities. But what it does mean is that given so much focus on the handheld devices, how can you think about testing and automation for this mobile first approach? This is not standard testing that you're doing. You cannot just apply the same principles, practices, strategy of testing on desktop in your mobile applications as well. You have to think differently. You have to understand the ecosystem well in order to start doing meaningful and valuable testing in this aspect. So for that, I want to start off by talking about some of the key differences when it comes to testing web and native apps. And native apps could very easily be, and actually includes mobile web as well, not just native apps in that sense, but there is still a difference of approach that you need to think about over here. And the differences in aspects of what are the interactions going to be. In a desktop browser, I'm doing clicks over there in terms of navigation. In terms of devices, I'm doing taps. And there is certain difference over there. For example, there are swipes, there are gestures that are there that you need to think about. Each device will have different set of capabilities that you need to think about, the form factors, the browser versions, whether it's custom browsers or standard browsers, W3C compliant browsers that might be there. The OS variations can be very important, and how it interacts with and how it is compatible with the custom hardware that would be there on each different type of devices. The hardware itself has got a lot of different parameters, battery, CPU, and the memory aspects of it, because whether it's a mobile web or a native app, you are going to be using a lot of resources from your device. And how is that going to impact the device? In addition, the external factors when it comes to the network fluctuations or variations when the user is on the move, the temperature, humidity, moisture, which not many people think about. I'll give an example, not for mobile handset, but my Mac Pro that I'm using. I'm based out of India, and it gets pretty hot over here. Every time the temperature rises, I see my CPU starting to spin aggressively every day. And even though I might be comfortable in the hot temperature, my laptop is not. I need to switch on the air conditioning for that. And that's the reality. Same thing is going to happen with your mobile device as well. And what is the impact that you're going to have of your application, whether it is in the browser or as a native app, in these network conditions, in these temperature or geographic conditions, is extremely important. Plus the interruptions, what happens, whether I keep on getting constant pings on WhatsApp or Slack or any other channel, or I've got notifications coming from Netflix or any other OTT application for new shows that have been there. These are regular things that happen in the course of using handheld device, how is your application going to continue working as predicted, as expected in all these conditions? You have to think about that. And last but not the least, the release approach. Release approach is massively different when it comes to native apps compared to web apps. And in this case, web and mobile web is similar compared to the native apps, which has a different approach. And I do want to spend a little time on the release process and differences between web and native apps as well. So the first difference I want to talk about is rollback, which is extremely important. You can achieve rollback relatively easily in a web and mobile web context. In mobile, native apps, it is just not possible. An example of this is something that we can all relate to, unfortunately, very well, the pandemic. A virus that is spread from one person cannot be pulled back. The only way to stop is at its source, wear a mask, be safe, isolate yourself, and don't let the germs spread out. You will get well, but also you are preventing others from falling in or getting the virus. Same is the case for native apps as well. Once you do a release, if any user has got the application on their device, there is no way you can get it back off there. You can think about upgrades or pushing out hotfix and forcing people to upgrade, but it is still the individual's choice if they want to upgrade to the new version of the app or not. They would rather uninstall the app in some cases instead of being forced to upgrade to a new version. So it's very important to think about that aspect. So what this means is you have to be very careful when you're doing a release to production, a final release, whether it's a stage rollout or not. Is this something that you want to release? How confident are you about that? And knowing that you cannot pull it back. The other aspect is upgrade scenarios. You have to think about these in context of web. Upgrade is always last production release and the next one. That's what I'm upgrading between. In case of native apps, it is always the case of I've got so many different versions of my application potentially being used live by the users. I need to think about the upgrade paths from each of those app versions to the version that I'm releasing and make sure it works correctly. Not to forget the fact about hot fixes. This I mentioned earlier in some ways, right? Hotfix is easy to deploy on the web, mobile web context, but you cannot force this on the native app users. Also, there's aspect of external approvals. In the context of web, there is no external approval required. As long as your organization, your team is good with doing the release, you can go ahead and proceed with the release. But in case of native apps, for example, if you're releasing through App Store or Google Play Store, you have to go through their approval process, which can be between 1 hour to a week as well. I have spent at least that much time in both these contexts, less than an hour for Google and more than a week for Apple to approve the app before I can release it. So you have to plan. If you need to release features by a certain timeline, you definitely have to keep the aspect of how much time is it going to take for me to get the app approved before I do the release and cater to that fact. The other aspect is when you do the release, it's not that all users get the new version instantaneously. There is going to be a path, lean growth, how users will start adopting to the new versions. So again, based on certain criticality of the features, you might need to plan accordingly, think backwards about by when do you need to be at 50% of adoption, work backwards and see how do you plan for that release as well. The deployment size doesn't necessarily matter in case of web or mobile web. Yes, the page size, the page load does matter, but not as much compared to the app size, because we saw the variations of the operating systems that are in use right now for Android or iOS. There's a lot of different variations. The older versions definitely will be on the older set of devices, which has got a huge limitation of how much data or memory is going to be there. So you have to think about the deployment size. And of course, the compliance, there is browser compliance versus on the device, there is stock OS, custom OS, hardware limitations as well. So I hope this gives you a perspective of the kind of complexities you need to be thinking about from the native app release perspective. So let's move on to how does automation really work in this case, right? Why do we do automation? We want to be able to do faster and more confident releases, which also it means that if you are able to automate things which are standard tests, known scenarios, known situations, we are able to automate that and simulate those. But that gives us more time for doing exploratory testing. It also, a combination of this also helps reduce the defects going into production, which is extremely important. That is why we do testing. It reduces the impact of things not working well for our end users. For this, there are a lot of articles and documentation you can read about, but one of a good way to think about from a mobile testing perspective is also the mobile testing pyramid, where you would start thinking about how can I run the test as effectively as possible. I'm now talking from more of a functional perspective, where you think about how can you get quick testing done on browsers and then move on to simulators and emulators and then move on to the real devices, which is going to give you value for money over there from a testing perspective. All these types of testing done, you could have unit tests, API tests. API tests also can be in form of contract test, provider or consumer, API tests, workflow tests. You've got end-to-end UI test as well. You also have got NFRs, which are part of your automation suite, which gives you good and quick feedback how your product is going to scale. These are things that will help you get better in your quality of building a quality product. Now, from a functional automation perspective, these are important criteria to keep in mind. How do you build a good framework? You should be able to specify once and run on all platforms. You should have zero manual intervention. A new build is available or a new deployment is done. You should be able to run the test automatically without making any changes. It should run fast. And you should have rich reports to allow RCA, root cause analysis, when the test fails. So you can take quick decisions on why it has failed and how can you prevent that failure from happening again. This is a typical architecture that I use for building an automation framework. I'm not going to walk you through this because the focus is different, but the slides would be shared with you, so you will be able to get a chance to look at this more closely. And also, I'll be happy to talk with you separately about this as well. But we have spent all this effort on automation, but something is still missing. There's a big part of the puzzle that is still missing. You do all this automation, and still you end up with defects going into production. This is an example of something that is between OS versions, the application is behaving differently. So when iOS 14 was released, same applications which were working correctly earlier did not work well because maybe contrast issues, layouts, colors, there was something getting messed up. That is a problem. And you'll find such examples all over the place. It's not just about OS upgrades or different OS versions. It could be applications seem to work correctly, functionally, the automated tests work well, but from a visual perspective, they are messed up. Now, in this particular case, this page might seem fine to you, but this is not really a proper responsive page, because this header row is a horizontal scroll. And I know this because I tested this. I used this website. I found this out on my own. But this is a problem, right? Your users might not really know what is there. And that's a problem. And you'll see such examples all over the place where the rendering does not happen correctly. There might be breakage in the functionality. Your functional tests seem to work fine because you're still doing clicks and actions and verifications on the data that exists in the page. But look-wise, you don't know what is going on. This is an example from Spotify, example from some other travel site. You will find examples like this all over the place. Any domain, any region, any geography, does not matter. Such types of issues happen. It is software, defects are going to come up. The point is, why do these come out, and can you prevent these from happening in production? Can you prevent this from impacting your end users? So the fundamental reason I believe why this happens is these types of defects escape because our approach to testing is incorrect. Our approach to testing is like playing a puzzle or playing a game, spot the difference. I'm always on the time pressure, and in that time pressure, I've got hundreds of things to do, finish the story testing and defect verification, re-verification, and so many other things that are there. I'm, as a tester, as a QA, or as any person on the team who's involved in testing for quality, I'm always running against time. And the approach to testing in most of these cases is going to be like spot the difference. Quickly take a look at what is happening on the page and figure out what really is wrong from what was expected. And if you look at this particular image on the screen, you have actually seen it for almost 30 seconds now. How many defects do you think are there in this particular case? How many differences do you see in these two images? Given time, you'll of course find out. Now, in this case, I could identify 6, but that's because my eyes are not as good as what they used to be earlier. There could be more that you have spotted. But do you really get this much time in all contexts, on all screens, all types of devices in your application? Sandra is saying she found 7 defects. So I missed a few already over here, right? So that's amazing. You had 30 seconds to find this. How much faster can you get at this pace? How reliable can this approach of finding the differences can be for you every single time? And these are very important aspects to think about. Our approach to testing is false. This is something that I identified and built on my own. Had I used a particular tool or a technology that can assist me in this, the value that I'm able to bring to the product, to the quality of the product increases tremendously. So the missing piece that I want to talk about is visual AI. How can you use visual AI, that is the power of the computers, to replicate what the human eye and brain can see and do? So you have to be able to use technology and tools to assist you get better at what is your quality of your product. And then the tools and technologies cannot take the decisions for you, at least not yet, but they can give you with accuracy what are those differences, and based on those differences, can you will be, as a team member, you will be able to take a decision on how well uh, you can make the quality of your product. Okay? So that is visual AI. Now, the important clarification is visual AI is not about pixel comparison. Pixel comparison gives you a lot of false positives. This is a simple example that I have run on a site where if I do pixel comparison and any UI changes have happened in the product as the product evolves, for any small change, a pixel comparison will show you the whole screen, or a lot of false positives will come out of here. However, if I use an AI algorithm for this, the AI algorithm will highlight the real differences which matter to the users, as the user will be able to see. So in this case, the third tile over here is not highlighted in pink as a difference found, because that is the same as seen by the humans, seen by the eye. However, there is significant difference in the above or the below regions, which the tool is identifying and telling you, hey, these seem to be genuine differences, but now you take a look at it and see if this is actually a defect or this is a product that has evolved, which means you have to update your baseline. So this is a very important aspect to keep in mind. How can you use the different algorithms? So for example, here's a case with a layout algorithm where we do not care about what is different to the human eye, but we focus on the structure of the how you can actually take this approach of integrating functional testing and visual testing together to get maximum value for your efforts that you're putting for functional automation. Okay, so let's switch to the demo. At this point in time, what I'm using is Applitools. I'm showing you a demo of Applitools Visual AI. Applitools has got more than 50 different SDKs that you can choose from to integrate with your functional testing solution. Each tutorial that you see on the applitools.com/tutorials page, each of these tutorials will have details about how does it work, and it also refers to sample code, how you can make that integration happen. Integration is extremely simple. I'm not going to get into a lot of code over here, but all I want to highlight is that the integration is mostly a boilerplate integration, where the way you instantiate your browser drivers, you would instantiate Applitools over there. Where you say you're closing the browser, you would also get the results back from Applitools, and you would take decisions on those results. Now, in your test execution itself, where you're using the browser to navigate and do the actions on the browser, get information from the browser, you continue to do that. But whenever you want to do visual validations, you will be just calling simple APIs like eyes.check window. And there are different APIs that will give you better control as well, where this will do the visual validation for you. And what this does is it will capture the DOM and CSS information of the browser at that point in time. And then in background, it will send that information to Applitools server and get the visual results back for you. Your test proceeds in the meantime. It is not blocked for the data to come back. So this happens really fast as well. But now, assuming that you have done this integration and you run the test, you would come to the Applitools dashboard where you would see your test results over here. This is a visual testing tool. So you would need to come to a dashboard to see what really is different if your tests have indeed found a difference over here. So what I want to show you a few quick examples is about, let's start off with finance app. So assume I had run these tests on native apps. And in this case, my app under test is Yahoo Finance app. In this case, I don't have control over the type of data that comes into this application. I cannot control that data. Hence, if I try to do a pixel comparison over here, what I would end up seeing is a lot of differences that are highlighted, because pixel comparison is going to highlight any difference that is showing up on the screen. That's why the exact algorithm never works. By the way, I forgot to mention, on the left-hand side, the image that you see is a baseline. This is your golden copy. This is what you expect your product to be always seen as. The right-hand side is a screenshot that was captured when your test executed recently. And that is what is being compared with your baseline. Now, with a strict algorithm, we saw there are so many differences found. However, this is not the right algorithm because it will not give you the right type of information. If you look at an exact, the strict algorithm is whatever is different to the human eye. I want to see those as differences. And if I toggle between the baseline and the checkpoint, you would see whatever data is actually different is being highlighted in pink over here. What this means is Applitools is able to figure out and highlight only the differences that really matter to the human eye and show that to you. And you, being part of the team, know if this type of results that is being shown to you, is that a defect that is found, or is that a product that is evolved, which you would know of because you're part of the team and you just need to update your baseline. In this particular case, the strict algorithm is also not the right algorithm because I don't have the data under control. In this case, there is a lot of false positives for me, right? Because the data is changing, but the application is behaving correctly. So what you could do is switch to the layout algorithm, where in this case, Applitools will ignore all the data, all the differences that are seen to the human eye, and it focuses on the structure of the page, what is different, and it is going to, it is able to highlight differences that are existing from the structure of a page perspective. In this case, there is something missing on this button, which is a problem. So if you have a Jira integration, you could directly just create a defect over here that some content is missing. And with the Jira integration, you'll be able to get a ticket created in Jira directly. And at this point in time, you just do a thumbs down to mark the test as failed. This is when Applitools is going to mark the test as failed. In all other cases, it is by default, it marks it as passed or unresolved. Passed means there is no visual difference found, and failed means, unresolved means there are some visual differences found, and you need to take an action on that. So for a minute, I am going to undo these changes because I want to show a very important capability that gives you a lot of control from a visual validation perspective. Let's say strict is the right algorithm for you to use at this for this particular screen or this test. However, there is a particular section of that screen or a smaller region which you want to use a layout region, for example. So you could simply mark that region as a layout, and what would happen is the whole page is compared using strict, only the region that you have selected to be in layout is going to be compared using the layout algorithm. So now you're able to use a combination of these algorithms to do the right type of visual testing for your product based on the context of what tests you are running and how you are running those. Okay, that is very important to keep in mind. Another use case of this is, let's say we are all familiar with ads that show up on our products, especially if you're using freemium based products, right? There are ads that show up, and these will completely throw your visual testing off because there'll be a lot of false positives. Why? Because you cannot control if an ad is going to show up or not. And if it is going to show up, which ad is it going to be? You cannot predict those. So what you could do is, if this was the region where the ad is going to show up, you could simply mark this as an ignore region. And in that case, any difference in this region is going to be ignored. That particular subset or a region of the page is going to be ignored from comparison. The rest of the page continues to be using whichever algorithm you have selected for. So you now get a lot of control in how you want to be doing this validation. Okay. I hope these algorithms and the features are you're able to make sense out of that. If not, please do ask questions in chat. I'll try to address those as well along the way. Another important aspect is whatever I've shown from the dashboard can easily be controlled from your script itself. You could say, instead of eyes.check window, you could have used what Applitools calls fluent APIs. You can do all the similar things that we did from the dashboard in your script itself. So you don't have to come to the dashboard to take those decisions. And that can again give a lot of control and power and accuracy to your testing. Okay. What I showed is for native apps. The same thing applies whether it is browser. And this is a good example of cross-browser testing. We do not recommend really doing cross-browser comparison because each browser has its own different rendering engine. If I have to do a pixel-based comparison in a cross-browser context, if I highlight the differences, you see the whole page is marked in pink because at a pixel level, the way each browser renders it is completely different. That's why pixel comparison again does not work. There might be options of saying, maybe I'll have set some tolerance limit, X% tolerance is okay for me, but why X and why not Y%? There is no science or logic behind that. It's a gut feeling, and you're just trying to eliminate false positives to the best of your abilities, but you might end up missing out real issues as well in that. So we always recommend you do a apple to apple comparison, compare the same browser with the other. That way, as the product evolves, any difference that is highlighted by Applitools is going to be accurate, and you will be able to take decisions on those, whether that's a regression that has been found or it's a functionality that has been updated in your product. That said, let's look at a strict algorithm over here. In a strict algorithm, you will see there are so many differences found. And again, using AI, we are able to find out what is really different to the human eye, and we are able to highlight those differences for you. If I switch to the layout algorithm, in this case, the strict again is false positive in many cases to me, because I don't really care how this text is getting rendered. As long as the text is the same, I'm okay with a slight difference in the way it is rendered. But is there a real issue over here? If I look at a layout algorithm, again, you will see that there's something missing on the bottom right-hand side of the page. And your functional test could have been about get free pricing. You're not even thinking about this other functionality. But if you use a full page comparisons as part of your test, you will be able to validate a lot of functionality, even though your focus of functional test is not there, but you're still getting those defects and issues caught and addressed. And as before, you see this is an issue, you can report it as a defect, mark the test as failed, and move on. Okay. The same thing will continue to work with any different type of application. So we saw browser, we saw native apps. Here's an example of PDF forms. There's a lot of use case for doing visual comparison from PDF forms as well when it comes to compliance, whether my bills are getting generated correctly. PDFs you would generate from a legal standpoint, right? No one can edit the document. These are signed documents. These are non-editable documents. So, and these are generated automatically as well. How do you make sure that these documents are getting generated with accuracy, the same thing every time? So again, you can do visual testing on the PDF forms as well, and the same algorithms would apply. Of course, for PDF, the SDK is different, and certain controls might not be available for PDF as compared to web or native. Some other interesting use cases. Here's where we are comparing Facebook login page of one language with the other. Unfortunately, I do not know either of these languages, but I can say that both of these languages are different. However, you would notice that Applitools has marked this test as green. It has passed. Why? Because it has used the layout algorithm. From the layout perspective of this page, there is no difference that Applitools has found. And to see what would be the kind of differences you see in a strict algorithm, anywhere where the text is there except the logo, everything else is marked in pink. And obviously you could, I don't need to put it one on top of the other to figure it out. You are able to see the differences directly as well. So the strict algorithm can be of use over here. What this means is you could have a very, if your product is localized into different languages, it's available in different languages, you can have a strategy to say what type of localization testing do you want to do in different environments. Maybe in my lower environment where I do not have language expertise, I'm going to use a layout algorithm to make sure as my UI changes or as there's changes to the UI libraries, the structure of the pages still remains consistent. And then as I go in higher environments, then I could compare the same language with real data as well and have different strategies for that. But localization is another very important use case, what you will be able to achieve over here. Another interesting use case, dynamic data. Typically, there are three challenges when it comes to visual testing. One is how reliable is my visual testing algorithm? And this is where we have seen a lot of examples already where pixel matching just does not work at all. So the AI algorithms of Applitools is 99.49% accurate. And this is based on more than 1 billion tests that have executed on the platform over time. So with this, the first problem of how accurate is my visual comparison is solved using a very powerful, stable, robust AI engine. The second challenge is I need to create baselines for all the different browsers and devices and mobile web that might be there, right? Creating all these baselines is extremely challenging, and we see the need of why this is important, right? We saw that example of comparing Chrome with Edge. You cannot compare one browser with the other because of different types of issues that might come in. Hence, the solution is you have to create a baseline for each of the browsers, for each viewport size that you have, whether I'm using iPhone 4 or iPhone 6 or iPhone 10, iPhone 11. Similarly, for Android, tablet, portrait, or landscape mode, there are so many combinations, which means your product is going to get rendered in different ways. The same product is going to get rendered in different ways. And you need a baseline for each of these. Creating these baselines is a nightmare, and maintaining them is a nightmare as the scale grows. So that's the second problem that Applitools solves for you. When you run the test, the first time you run the test, Applitools will check, is there a baseline available for this combination of tests that you have run? If not, we will automatically create the baseline for you. And there are ways that you can be able to control that behavior as well. The other part is your product is never a dead product. It's always going to evolve and get new functionality. So in that case, how can you evolve your baselines as your product evolves? And it is extremely simple. All you have to do is do a thumbs up. And when you do a thumbs up, you go and save those results. And that means your baseline has got updated automatically. So it's a very quick way. You come to the Applitools dashboard, you take a look at the differences. You say, no, these differences that I found are not real differences. My product functionality has changed. So I'm going to update the baseline. Just do a thumbs up, do a save, and you are good to go. Run the test again the next time. It will compare it with the last saved baseline that you have. So the three challenges of visual testing, Applitools takes care of it very easily for you and lets you focus on things that are really important that you might end up missing. Like I missed the obvious big sky in the Opera House picture, but others were able to find it very quickly. But do this very quickly, very often, and you might end up missing a lot of these issues. So Applitools will help you prevent a lot of that. Here's an example from a dynamic content perspective. Your product is not a blog that is there a static content. It is going to keep changing. It has dynamic content over there. In case of a media website, there can be nothing more dynamic than a media website. If you look at it from a strict algorithm perspective, whatever is different to the human eye, it's highlighted here. So the headers and everything are same because it is running on the same OS browser viewport size. But everything else in terms of the content itself is different, is been highlighted over here as a issue. Of course, because it's dynamic content, I would not use strict algorithm. We use layout, and that's how we saw that the test was marked as passed in the first place, because in layout algorithm, everything is fine. Okay, so these are some very important use cases that you can look at. Also, the other aspect that I have done is I ran some sample tests on mobile devices today. This was of our Test Automation University website, and I actually found that on Safari browser, rendering takes more time than other browsers in some cases. Maybe it's specific network conditions. I'm able to highlight those as differences over here. And these differences, if you look at it, these are as the page is getting loaded, the rendering is still happening, but the test captured it before that point. But even the point over here is, even for an extremely long page, Applitools is able to figure out the differences that are existing on the screen, and it tells you with confidence. So you just come to the dashboard and see, where are my differences? Let me take a look at those differences, and I'm able to proceed. Now, if you have root cause analysis enabled, with root cause analysis, you could simply click on the differences. And I've actually not uploaded the DOM information in this case. Let me see if there's another example I can show you for this. So you have to enable capturing of the DOM information when you're doing root cause analysis. In this case, another GitHub example, I have done that. So I click on a difference and it will tell me what is the difference in the DOM and CSS. That will, because of which there has been a UI change or a visual change. So now I can take this information, pass it to my UI developers, and very quickly we can take decision on those. Okay. So with that, I hope this gives you an indication into what type of features and capabilities are possible using Applitools. We also have the ultrafast grid, which can be used, but we don't have time to talk about that right now. But if anyone is interested, please do reach out, and we'll be happy to share more details on the same. With that, I want to start wrapping up my portion before I hand it over back to Mudit. Using visual assertions instead of functional assertions gives you a lot of value. You can use a single assertion for complete functional coverage. So this example is of Cypress, where I'm using Cypress to do the navigation, to do the actions on the browser. But instead of using assertions over there, what I'm doing is I'm replacing that with a single eyes.check window, which is taking care of the full functional validation as well as a visual validation for me. It validates the UI and the user experience. It does not break when the UI changes. That means locator changes is not an issue. You do not need special coding skills to maintain baselines, as we saw in the demo earlier. And that makes it very easy to start using it and take decisions on your product. And last but not the least, you can validate the user experience at scale for all the supported browsers very easily using this approach. So with that, I would like to say thank you. But last note over here, if you're interested in knowing more about mobile testing, we do have another event coming up called Future of Testing Mobile, which is focused on mobile. And this is happening on 8th of April at 9 a.m. PST. There is a link over here. Please feel free to register. It's a free event again. Intention is to share knowledge and experience, and would be very happy to see you over there as well. With that, I would like to say thank you, and Mudit, over to you to show the integration of LambdaTest and Applitools.
Awesome. Right. Thanks for the session, Anand. Right, really informative, and really like the Applitools product as well. And I think that it's going to solve a lot of problems, specifically related to visual regression testing. And thanks for also covering the cross-browser testing part, right? So that's where LambdaTest comes into the picture. So I'm gonna go do a quick overview of what Lambda test is, and highlight a little bit about how you can leverage both Lambda test and Applitools for your overall visual regression testing. But I also wanted to highlight few of the stats that I got a chance to kind of understand related to mobile app and mobile web, right? So Anand briefly touched about it, that if you want a mobile presence, you have two approaches. Of course, you can build up a native mobile app, or you can build up a native mobile web, right? And he of course covered all the major important aspects, like why exactly you need a mobile presence. But Anand, over the past few years as well, we have seen this trend that people are preferring more around mobile app, and sometimes neglect their presence related to mobile web itself, right? So that is a I will not say a very prevalent issue, but that is a issue that I wanted to highlight today as well. So even though we say that mobile app strategy is an important thing, and nearly a lot of people are using mobile web is still one of the most important aspects. And this is highlighted by the stat that nearly every session that happens, out of those mobile shopping sessions that happens, out of those, nearly half involves a transition between a mobile site and a mobile app. So if you have, let's say, an e-commerce app, e-commerce website, and somebody comes to your website to purchase, let's say, a product, so there is a 50% chance that they first visit your app as well and then go to mobile site, or vice versa, they go to mobile site and visit the app. So overall, you will need a presence across both verticals. You will need a presence on both mobile app as well and mobile web as well to be equally effective, right? And this is also more prevalent because as mobile web has a higher reach, so if you have a mobile app presence only, you are dependent upon Play Store or App Store for the reach. If they did not find your app over there, or if they are not hesitant to download your app, your reach has decreased. However, mobile web, it is prevalent, it is technology independent, so you can expect that more people will be reaching out to you, reaching your uh, digital presence over mobile than web. And that is also prevalent in the how the people are becoming familiar with the mobile thing. They start off with the mobile browser than a mobile app. So nearly 38% of the people are comfortable shopping just on mobile side than the mobile app, right? And this number is increasing day by day. So this also touch another aspect related to how your mobile is being, your presence is being discovered. So it is 64% more likely that any shopper will be searching you first on a web-based search engine before purchasing some kind of product from your site, right? So it's 64% more likely that they find first your web presence than your mobile presence. So it's very important to build up that web presence itself. And it's also being seen, a latest trend is that if you force somebody to go with your mobile app rather than a mobile web, they are likely to stop their shopping experience altogether. So it happened to Flipkart once. They forced their users to, in 2015, they forced their users to go with mobile app directly. They were forcing mobile web users to first download and install a mobile app and then do a purchase. But eventually their users started dropping off, their engagement started dropping off, and
I
they
was
were
one of them.
yep. Yeah, so again, they were forced to uh, structure their whole digital presence again. And now if you look at it, the Flipkart's mobile and web presence is like nearly identical. You won't be able to find any difference. They had worked all together on their both web presence and mobile presence, and in their both mobile web presence and mobile app presence, and it's really difficult to find any differences there, right? So that's how important a mobile app and a mobile web approach, a combination of both mobile app and mobile web approach is when we talk about your overall digital strategy. And that's also where lambda test comes into the picture. So we have talked about that we have established this fact that you need a great mobile web presence, but the challenge comes into picture when you have to test that web presence across different mobile devices. There you can set up an in-house device lab, but it's a huge challenge to set up a device lab that caters to all possible different type of devices. Apple every year launches 6 different mobile devices. Samsung 17 different mobile devices. So if you want to set up an in-house device lab that caters to all of these different type of mobile combinations, you have to expend at least $20,000 a year just to keep yourself updated, your mobile labs updated. But alternative to this solution and a much cheaper way alternative to this is that you go to a product like LambdaTest. We are providing you an online cloud with all different type of browsers, browser versions, operating systems, and device types over which you can perform your complete testing. So you do not have to worry about building up in-house device labs. You do not have to worry about spending thousands of dollars over virtual machines that you may not be able to use very efficiently. You would have to worry about maintaining in-house infrastructure. You do not have to worry about scaling up that in-house infrastructure just for testing. So that's where LambdaTest comes into the picture. We provide you a reliable and scalable cross-browser testing cloud where you can perform all your testing, right? And how it fits into the picture specifically for automation testing is that we are providing you an automation testing grid. So it's a Selenium and JavaScript based testing grid that you can use to not only increase your browser coverage by testing on multiple different browsers, multiple different operating systems, and even multiple different mobile devices. You can also cut down your test execution time by running your test in parallel. So you can run multiple test threads at the same time and thereby cut down your test execution times, right? So this is all the USPs that LambdaTest brings into the picture, that you can test across multiple different browsers. You can run your test in parallel. You can, of course, test your locally hosted application, and we provide you end-to-end APIs to also manage and extract all of these tests. And the best part is we integrate with a lot of testing tools that make your life, that is part of your overall testing scenario. So we integrate with tools like Jenkins. We integrate with project communication tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, with project management tools like Jira. So as Anand also showed, Applitools integrates with Jira as well. So the same goes with LambdaTest. We also integrate with frameworks. So if you are using WebDriver IO, Zest, all of these tools, they are that can be directly integrated with LambdaTest. And of course, you can also integrate Applitools with LambdaTest platform. So how that integration works is, as Anand mentioned, Applitools goes in your Selenium as SDK, in your test code as an SDK. It opens up the browser, and from the browser DOM, it takes a screenshot. But the challenge here is, what if you want to run that same test on a legacy browser? What if you want to run a test on a type of browser that you may not have present locally? For example, I'm a Windows user. I want to take a test on Safari browser that is available only on Mac, that is not available locally. You cannot download a Safari browser on Windows machine. So what then? So either you buy a Mac laptop or you come to platform like LambdaTest. So you can leverage the capabilities of Applitools for taking and comparing those screenshots, and you can leverage the capabilities of LambdaTest to provide you the device or the infrastructure which that screenshot can be taken, right? So in fact, let me go into the code part itself, how it looks like. So I leverage an open GitHub repository of Applitools itself to create a very simple test. So here, the test is very simple. It is opening up an Applitools demo URL. It's a login URL performing a very few action items like login, click Windows, and in the end, I'm doing a driver quit. But the first thing to note here is that instead of running my test locally, I am running this test over a Lambda test grid. So I am providing the test uh, instead of providing a local web driver, I am providing a remote web driver here. And this remote web driver is present at a grid URL. So that grid URL is provided here. And to access that grid URL, I will need an authentication key and username again, that is also provided. And another third aspect is that you would have to define which browser version you want to run your test on. So that is defined using the desired capability object. Once you run this test, this is how it will look like at Lambda test dashboard. You will see all of your tests organized here as a build name and a test name. And these build name and test name is defined using desired capability objects themselves. So three things. So if you have present running Selenium scripts, even Applitools based Selenium scripts, you can run those same at Lambda test platform. Have to do three important changes. One is instead of calling a local web driver, you have to call a remote web driver. That remote web driver requires authentication key, and define a desired capability object on which browser version you want to run your test on. So because I'm going to run this test in parallel, I have right now parameterized this version. But to get a good desired capability, like to get the right syntax, set up all the capabilities, we have a tool for that as well. You can leverage capability generator. So it's a very simple web utility that will create a desired capability object for you for a desired operating system and browser version. Just copy paste it using whatever language that you are using for your running tests. So how does the integration looks like, right? So right now, I also have an Applitools Eyes account, and I earlier ran a few tests using the same script. So the test is happening as if I'm just calling Applitools driver here, Applitools SDK here, and already set a baseline image using this test script. Now I'm gonna run it again, and this will set up a comparison. So the test I earlier ran, it created a baseline. So one is a baseline that was created on Mac OS, Firefox, and one was the baseline that was created on Windows 10, Chrome 85. So in this, I have already added the Applitools SDK, and I'm leveraging these same features. So instead of running a local driver based test, I'm running a Lambda test remote driver based test. So Applitools SDK will directly sample the DOM and run the test over Lambda test platform, right? Oh, let me run the XML file directly. My bad. So whenever any test is run, you will see the feedback over both your both IDE, as at the same time you will be able to see the feedback of that running test over Lambda test platform. So you will able to see the live running of the test like this. And in addition, once a test is executed, we provide a lot of data related to that test as well over at Lambda test. So first, for example, we will provide you a complete video log of that test. And we also have multiple other type of logs. For example, we'll provide you command logs. So our platform automatically takes a screenshot after execution of every Selenium command. We also provide end-to-end network logs. So you can leverage these network logs to do a deep debugging of your test. And we also provide end-to-end raw logs that you can leverage to do a really deep dive into what went wrong in your Selenium scripts. So once those tests are executed completely, you will see these tests marked as passed or completed or failed based on the status that you have run. And at the Applitools eyes as well, you will be able to see the differences. So right now the test is being executed, but once those gets over, you will be able to see the unresolved based. As Anand also highlighted, you will be able to see the differences between those two tests. So I ran these tests earlier on Mac OS. That is, I do not. I'm Windows user, right? I'm wanted to run a test on Mac, so I leveraged LambdaTest, and I found these bugs. So this was an earlier version. This was the latest version. So I'm using the strict version, but you get the picture here. So you can leverage both LambdaTest and Applitools size to perform a visual regression testing over multiple different browsers, browser versions, operating systems, and even mobile. So all of these tests were run on desktop. We can also similarly run these tests over mobile browsers as well, right? So yeah, so that's basically it. This is how exactly an integration between LambdaTest and Applitools size looks like, and how you can leverage both platforms to perform your complete testing. So that's it from my side as well. And if you want to leverage LambdaTest, you can sign up right now. We have a freemium plan that will give you nearly 100 minutes of testing for 100 minutes of automation testing. However, if you want to do a deep dive into the product, and feel free to reach out to us. We have a live chat support at our website. We'd be happy to help you out and even do a deep dive demo specifically for you, and can highlight how you can leverage Lambda Test Grid for your end-to-end automation testing, right? So yeah, with that said, that's it from our side. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have, and we'll be happy to answer them. So I think we already had two questions before, and kind of answered them. First was, can Applitools be used with Cypress? So
Yes,
yeah,
I've answered those questions. I have given some relevant links as well. So hopefully everyone is able to see those. Yes,
uh,
Applitools has a SDK for Cypress, as well as the next question was for GitLab integration. I've shared the link of how you can configure to use Applitools with GitLab pipelines.
so there was another question from Brad. Uh,
Yeah. So Brad is asking, when switching from a strict to layout view in Applitools, are the tests rerun at LambdaTest? No, this what Applitools does is in real time in the browser, it will show you the differences based on the algorithms you are choosing. And if you want to change the algorithm as a default, you would rerun the test with a different algorithm. At that point, you do not need to switch, right? But in the browser, when you switch, it is just to see visually what would happen if you're using a different algorithm. So it does not rerun the test. Okay. Amreen has a question. Does Applitools can be used with native Android and iOS applications? Yes, definitely. Applitools, we've got so actually, let me classify that question better. It depends on the tool set that you're using for functional automation. For example, if you're using APM, APM supports Android and iOS, and Applitools has a APM SDK that can be used to do visual testing for Android and iOS applications. So I hope that answers Amri.
uh, awesome. So I think, yep, we have one more question.
Okay. Do we have to write all our tests with code, or is it able to create automatically test cases? So, if I understand the question correctly, is or rather, there are two ways this question can be looked at. Let me take a stab at both of those questions. One, you have existing automation. Do you have to write new code to do the integration with Applitools? If that is a question, there is a lot of code that you can remove if you're using Visual AI, Applitools Visual AI as part of your automation. So your code actually reduces. If the question actually meant if you do not have existing automated tests, can we use Applitools? In that case, Applitools is actually a visual AI tool which complements your functional testing. But there are different ways how you can achieve that. One is what Mudit also explained, how you can integrate that with LambdaTest. Simple Selenium scripts integrated with LambdaTest for execution. But there are codeless solutions also. For example, Selenium IDE, which has Applitools plugin. So you can record and playback and also do visual testing at the same time.
And I think the latest Selenium ID had a huge contribution from Applitools team as well, right?
Yes, there was a huge uh, rewrite that happened for Selenium ID. It has become very powerful. Can be run on command line, can be run as part of CI, can be run on multiple browsers. So a lot of amazing capabilities in Selenium IDE for good record and playback solution.
Awesome. So there was a question for me. Does Lambda test support real device testing? So yeah, we do have real devices, both desktop and mobile. However, right now our platform is focused more around web and web application testing rather than mobile app testing. So we are working on bringing mobile app testing features as well, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Right now, you can perform both on Android and iOS and also Windows and Mac machines. You can perform web application and website based testing. So yeah, so I think we covered nearly all of our questions here. If anybody has any question, feel free to let me know. Nope. So I think we also overshot our time, Anand.
Yes, but it was fun. I hope it was valuable to everyone who has been with us for all this time. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining us today. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be also hosting the recording of this session over YouTube. So if you missed it again, feel free to check out the YouTube link. We'll be sharing the YouTube link over the registered email ID as well. And if you have any questions for us in the future, feel free to reach out to both Anand or me over Twitter or email ID. We will be sharing those as well. Or as I mentioned, you can also reach out to us at LambdaTest support, and I'll be happy to connect you with the Applitools teams and Ananda as well, right? So glad you all can join us, and looking forward to seeing you in the next event. As also Anand shared, there's another Applitools event that's going to happen in 9th of April. We will be sharing you the link to that event as well. Feel free to log in there, sign up, and I'm quite sure that would be very informative session as well for you all, right? With that said, I'm gonna say goodbye to you all. Bye bye. Have a great day ahead. And Anand, thanks for the webinar. Thanks for joining us today and showing a lot about Lambda Applitools. Really like the product, really liked Applitools, and I'm quite sure that it will be a big value add to like everybody here.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mudit and Lambda Test. It was great to be here. Thank you. Have a good night or good day and stay safe, everyone.